do you feel like using a podcast to facilitate relationship building is like easier than other ways? Like, because you can meet people in person, you can do ads, you can link them personal profile. Do you think launching a podcast is easier? And my suspicion is that it's a yes, because when you say, hey, we're doing a podcast, you want to come, that's 60 minutes of conversation,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
And then they can hear you episode after episode after episode. So let's just say you're trying to build a relationship with one person.
Yeah.
I guess podcasts are like, it's got to be a top tier way of doing it, right?
I think if you're in B2B space, to me, it is the number one appointment setting tool that's genuine and not I'll put it this way. I think if you view it long-term, if I want to build power partners and build relationships that way, really powerful. If it's, hey, do you want to hop on this podcast so I can, dupe you into really telling you my sales pitch? I think the word will get out eventually and people will be like, yeah, the guy's nice, but just be ready. It's just a giant, pitch at the end. So, but yeah, it's like people love it. Just like this, when you message me, Jeff, right? I'm nobody special. Like you have plenty of people in this group who are crushing it way more than me. But when you're like, hey, like you have a story to tell it, it's like, okay, let me move my schedule. Yeah, I can do it. People are willing to make those meetings.
So if someone is hesitant about asking people to come on their podcast of zero, right?
Yep.
0 episodes.
Yep.
Is there do you just call someone like, hey, you want to come on my podcast? Or like, how do you start that conversation off?
Yeah, I think it's like anything else. So I was strategic about it. I'd look for people of influence. So let's say, Jeff, for your example, you're in the dentistry space, right? You can start a dental marketing secrets podcast, very Russell Brunson, but you get the idea, right? Come up with a niche specific title. And I'd look for people who like dental business coaches is who I would go after. And I would want to interview them on the show because I'm going to tell them I'm going to be sending this out in front of the dental community, right? I have an email list. You can scrape. Jeff teaches you in here how to scrape email lists. Yep. That's a great way to blast out instead of, do you want my offer right away? If that makes you nervous, I know there are a lot of people who are like, I'm nervous to go for the sell right away. Cool. What if you sent them to a podcast episode with a dental business coach expert? And now all of a sudden they associate you with that person and they're like, well, this business expert guy, I've heard of him and he doesn't give his time to a lot of people. And so therefore this other person must be important because why would they give their time to that person? So just other creative ways to build authority. It makes that sales conversation that much easier when I hop on with someone and they're like, oh my God, I saw back in the day, I listened to your podcast with so-and-so, influential person in your space. Yeah. I'm not going to say it becomes a laydown sale, but it's usually like, I trust you, right? Yeah. You heard me and associated. So I think it's a really great thing.
That like 7-hour rule, right? Yeah. Somebody's going to watch and listen to you 7 hours before you have a dollar-driven conversation. That's number one. But number two, if someone's looking to build expertise in a space in an industry, they could spend 4 or 5 years learning about it or talk with 4 or 5 people. And if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, saying, hey, I run a podcast on blank. Would you like to come on for 60 minutes? That's a much easier yes to have those like industry building conversations and learning conversations than anything else, right? Like read all the books you want. Talking to an expert is just so much easier, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's research. You teach people to do research anyways. It's just another long form research, right? Like,
yeah. And did you find that a lot of people were like anti-podcast, like they'd be mean to you, or they would just say no, or most people would say yes?
No, I mean, I think the crazy thing about a podcast is if there's one thing I've learned is most people suck at creating content. So if you can offer a way to create content for them, I'll make it, I'll interview you. And I'm doing like above and beyond kind of thing where I'll splice it for you and send it over to you so you can put it out on your channels, right? You get a VA, or if you're starting out, do it yourself. Like you use free tools, like go like clip it, like, hey, put this on your LinkedIn, man. Appreciate the podcast interview. Would love to have you out there or for being on and here, go and send this, out to your list. Yeah. They love that because most people suck at making their own content. And I think most people just want to tell their story, right? Like everybody wants to feel like there's that there's stories out there. They love talking about themselves. And the coolest thing with podcasts is no one knows how many downloads you have. No one knows how many listeners. It's not like an Instagram profile. It's not a Facebook thing. So, I mean, I've been really lucky. I've had like 90+% success rate, except for going after like, I even ran an ad campaign to try to get Bill Nye onto our podcast, Bill Nye the Science Guy.
That would have been so cool.
I ran ads like following Bill Nye targeted followers. And I was like, share this with Bill. And it didn't lead to anything, but yeah, I went for it. I shot my shot with Bill Nye the Science Guy. And, but yeah, I feel like if you're genuine, this is the thing, if it's not from a place of, hey, do you want to hop on this podcast so I can then tell you my really cool offer about dental practices?
Yeah.
That doesn't go very well, right? People are human. You see through it. You understand what's going on now. But if you genuinely just, I'd love to learn. I want to share this out with people. I'm trying to spread the word of what we're doing. I find a very high acceptance rate. Now, if they're super influential, it might take 2-3 weeks from the book out, but otherwise they'll still do it.